7, our penultimate gemstone in our treatment of the other gems, and this is one of my absolute favorites. It's called Spinel, and it is far underappreciated with the public, and it is a stunning gemstone. It has featured throughout history because people didn't realize that it was a different gemstone than ruby. And so many of the more famous gemstones in different nations' crown jewels is actually Spinel. The most famous of these is called the Black Prince's Ruby. You can see the Black Prince's Ruby in the British crown jewels. It's sitting right here in the imperial crown. It is a magnificent stone. It's not faceted, but it's been polished on its exterior. It was probably mined out of Afghanistan in the 1000 AD or 1200 AD. And it only starts getting mentioned in history at around 1300, where it was exchanged between the Moors and the Spanish as they were battling over the Iberian Peninsula. Well, the Black Prince comes into play when the Spanish pay Prince Edward of Wales. That's the other name for the Black Prince. Prince Edward of Wales helps the Spanish defeat the Moors, and in return he is given this ruby, which of course is actually a Spinel. From there, it just gets put into these different helmets and crowns for the next many kings of England to wear. A number of them actually died while wearing it. Most famously was Richard III. This was in his battle helmet, and he died wearing this stone. So it's a fascinating stone, and if you want to go see it, you can, because it is currently housed in the Tower of London, where you can actually go see any and all of the crown jewels of England. Something I totally recommend if you ever get to visit. Now, this is not the only famous Spinel. The Timur ruby is another stone in the British crown jewels. It's 350 carats. And I think this stone must grow in the public awareness because it's just such a beautiful stone. Well, anyways, enough about the history. Let's go into the science. So mineralogy and geology, like we've been doing for every one of these subsections. Compositionally, this is almost exactly like corundum. And that's going to be probably the biggest concept of all of Spinel, is how similar it is to corundum. The composition, though, it is MgAl2O4. Now, corundum was just aluminum and oxide. So here we have a geologic environment that just has slightly more magnesium. But that's really the only difference. And so the occurrence ends up being in most of the same places. Our crystallography is very symmetrical. It occurs in the isometric system, and when it crystallizes in a euhedral form, it makes octahedron. Octahedron is one of those classic shapes where it's kind of like the two triangles that sit on top of each other, right? Like this. There you go. That's what an octahedron looks like. And so this is how Spinel crystallizes. And when people mine for it out of the hard rock mining, this is what they're trying to find. In fact, let me put a picture up here for you of an octahedron. This is, this colorway of Spinel is incredible, this hot flaming pink. But if you see here, look at that. There is our octahedral faces, right? There it is, sitting in a spectacular color. The hardness of Spinel makes it very valuable for jewelry. It's an 8 on Mohs hardness scale, and it has a very high specific gravity. Its density is 3.6 grams per centimeter cubed. So we have a good way to find it alluvially. We can find it with hard rock mining, and it has a great hardness. Why aren't we using this for jewelry more? Oh, it also has it has no cleavage. So it's not going to break. It's great for jewelry. That's the point here. Now, one reason why it hasn't been as popular is because synthetic Spinel is one of the first synthetic gemstones that was ever produced. And they've been making it since the early 1900s. And so a lot of times when people think about Spinel, they don't think about it as a natural stone, but they think about it as a synthetic, and we don't want synthetics. But that's actually not the case. Of course, there is a lot of synthetic Spinel out there. But of course, the natural stuff is fantastic. What colors? Let's go into the color and optics part of this lesson. B, colors and optics. Well, this is a short lesson. There's not actually all that much to say here, is that it comes in many colors. And it's colored by different trace elements. The main colors that you can buy are going to be red, pink, and blue. These are the big money colors for Spinel. Still much less than ruby, and maybe a little bit comparable to sapphire, but less than sapphire still. What's funny is that this year, so in the year, date myself later, but in 2019 to 2020, the most popular colors were actually gray. And then like this kind of purplish lavender, ER or AR at the end of lavender. It's an ER, were the most popular colors. I don't know why, but gray was just super fashionable. So it was selling like crazy. The different trace elements that produce these colors, well, red comes from chromium. Purples and oranges, these are certainly possible. These are when you have chromium mixing with some iron. Okay, so basically iron is deadening the color that you want. And then, let's see, like lavender to gray, this is mostly iron. Okay, so we have this like progression. Pink is also going to be chrome, and in fact, I mean, this is the most popular color right here. I think they call it hot pink, or sometimes they even call it Jedi. And I'm not sure if it's Jedi after a location in Myanmar where it's formed, or if it's Jedi like the famous knights in a galaxy far, far away. But I certainly pronounce that Jedi. Now there is the one other color that has a lot of value, and that is blue. And the blues are coming from a mixture of iron plus cobalt. And the more cobalt you have and the less iron that you have, the better the blue. So the more cobalt you have, the better the blue, the color you have. Now there are color change stones, and there are asterism possibilities. I don't even think we even really need to talk about it here. One thing I would like to say is that treatments are uncommon. And one reason why treatments are uncommon is because Spinel is not that well known to the public. And so there aren't the con men yet trying to treat stone to try to make a quick buck. But I do think that the treatments will grow in use as the stone becomes more and more popular with normal people, not just gem connoisseurs. Now finally, let's talk about where are the sources of Spinel in the world. Well, probably the most important region is the Mogok area of Myanmar. And I hope you remember hearing about Mogok and Myanmar when it comes to sapphires and rubies, because this is the main area in the world for sapphire and ruby. But sapphire and ruby are corundum with the chemical formula Al2O3. And so it's also the main area for Spinel, which is Mg Al2O4, and it's just in areas that have slightly more magnesium. But it is the same. So let's say it is the same. Did I skip the geology up here? Did I talk about where the geology even comes from? I did. I didn't even put geology in here. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to just put geology down here. We're going to say geology. Well, it's the same exact geology as our sapphire mines in Mogok. So we can do hard rock mining from marbles, which are metamorphic limestones. Or you're going to have alluvial mining. Because this has a hardness of 8 and a good specific gravity, it's going to resist erosion and weathering in rivers near those primary sources. So those are our main geologic sources. Here's a geographic source. When we think about alluvial mining and gemstones, you should be thinking about Sri Lanka nowadays. right? Because we keep hearing how Sri Lanka is fantastic for alluvial gemstones. Well, it's the case here as well. And anywhere else in the world where you find corundum, anywhere else in the world where you find corundum, you can also find spinel. Where corundum occurs. Well, where are some other good locations of corundum? Well, East Africa is a fantastic location for sapphire and ruby. Places like Tanzania. Tanzania is a great place, and so is Madagascar. These are places with abundant sapphire, ruby, and also spinel. Afghanistan, Tajikistan, these are additional places. And so we're just going to say, is it rude to say the stands? But the stands have some, and we're just going to say that there is room to grow as a source. Let me leave you with one last picture. I did not insert a couple of fantastic gemstone images. There is a beautiful pink spinel from Omi Privé. Here is a ring, again also from Omi Privé, showing the high-end potential of spinel in these fantastic colors. And we're talking about the main stone here. All right, see you next time. Last one's going to be garnet.